You're now watching program number 3 in the current series of From Saba to Barbados, the maritime legacy of Captain Eric Hassell. I'm Sherwood McCaskey, welcome, and as always, thanks for your time. In last week's program, we discussed the settlement in Barbados, as it were, those individuals who came over from Saba and relocated here in Barbados. We discussed the early trade and the use of the schooners to transport goods and other products. Now, schooners are a special part of the maritime legacy, history and heritage of Barbados. You might ask, and understandably so, what about their recreational value to the people of Barbados?
In the 1930s, Barbados had a boat race called the Round the Island Race. And it started around January. For example, in the January 1936 race, that Round the Island Race, won by a schooner called the Sea Fox, with Captain Kennedy aboard, that race was very important for Barbadians. It is said that Barbadians perched themselves on hilltops, especially in that Wanstead, Rotterdam area, to view the race. And of course, as the schooners got in this area, many Barbadians lined the wharf area to see the schooners coming home. So the schooner race was an annual event that Barbadians look forward to viewing, and of course some might have cast bets on their favorite schooner.
I remember them because I have to remember still sailing in those days. But one of the early races it was called the Khyber Cup. And the Khyber was from the Khyber Pass in India. And the man who brought it was a fellow called Petter. He presented Petter used to own this place. And his correspondence is mentioned in the Khyber Cup, but it seems to have disappeared. I don't know where it is. I've seen a picture of it, but I don't know where the cup is today. But that was our only connection with sailing. But people were very competitive. The schooner used to race from Guyana to Barbados.
Because schooners were talked about in Barbadian villages in terms of their speed. And that's important, the speed of the schooners. And I'm told that schooner captains coming from Trinidad and coming from British Guyana would race among themselves. They would race among themselves to see who would get here to Barbados the first.
He initiated the race. He used to sail because they used to have a lot of competition as well of the vessels, even the island vessels going to Guyana. I had one, Marion Bell Wolfe, Lucille Smith, Francis W. Smith, Emmeline, all of those. So it's something they used to be. Not competitions, but let's say Marion Bell Wolfe and the Lucille Smith left the same time. But it used to be more within the crew themselves to see which you got to Guyana first. But Daddy always just, that's not his personality. He making sure that he getting you there safe. He always used to tell us, he said, I'm getting you there safe. And interesting in the races, nope. His personality.
So recreation was a part, therefore, of the schooner experience. But there's another part of the schooner experience that we need to mention. And this was the transportation from Bridgetown to Spicetown, what we call the Spicetown schooners, transporting people every day, on mornings and on afternoons, transporting passengers between Bridgetown and Spicetown. And in those days, if you wanted to take the schooner, you could have a good schooner ride, and of course, if the rain fell, you would get wet, but you enjoy the ride coming up on the West Coast.
Many interesting stories have been told about the schooner rides along the coast of Barbados, and those stories have been documented and shared in other programs. Let us learn more about Captain Hassell's early days and his seafaring endeavors.
So we have, therefore, the context of the Hassell experience. As I said already, Eric Hassell started his seafaring journey at about 11 years old. He was born in 1914, and at about 11 years, he started his seafaring journey as an apprentice. And in those days, you worked for about 2 years without pay as an apprentice, and you're scrubbing the decks. You're the deckhand before you are paid. And after your apprenticeship is over, you get $1 per month. And that was the pay that Eric Hassell got when he started that journey. And many Sabans did the same thing, starting their seafaring journey at around 11 years old. So Captain Hassell, the subject of our discussion, started his seafaring enterprise, his seafaring journey as a schooner captain, and he soon becomes an experienced seafarer. It is said that in 1934, while he was on his way from Guyana to Barbados, his father, Frank Hassell, fell ill, and they're on board the Edward VII. And Captain Hassell took the wheel and steered that schooner into safe harbor and avoided a situation that might have been perilous. And from that point, therefore, we see a mature Captain Hassell as a mature captain who is an important seaman and who graduates from the schooners into the motorboat enterprise. So that in 1963, we find Captain Hassell skippering a motorboat called the MV Zipper. And the Zipper used to dock right here over on our left, close to the old Spirit Barn. That's where the Zipper used to be docked. And it brought rice from Guyana. Very important ship bringing rice from Guyana to Barbados.
And then, of course, in the inner basin, sometimes some of the cargoes that he brought from Guyana were Wallaby poles for light and power, Wallaby poles and Wallaby posts as well. And you would dump them in the careenage. So you just dump all the poles and posts in the careenage. I leave them there. Nobody wants to steal them because you can't steal them. Yeah, so interesting time. I mean, schooners, they were called inter-island schooners, or call them auxiliary motor vessels, auxiliary because they have an engine as well as sails. And they would come in the careenage, and especially in the more present times, especially from Trinidad, and they would have these products for like 30 or 40 consignees in Barbados. So you would go, as is now, you pass your customs document. Right? But of course you have to go to careenage to get them. So when you go to collect your bag, suppose you're from Cara Hunt, right? Your 2,000 cartons of soap is to the bottom. His Brighton, whatever, is on top of yours, and his cargo is on top of it. So even though your things are cleared, you can't get at them. So we then had to call people, call Cara Hunt or Bryden or wherever, and says, yes, you know, Robert's Manufacturing want the business and whatnot, come and clear your goods. And it was such a completely different experience. And the motor vessels, even some of them, they had no auxiliary engines, you know. From here to St. Vincent, 4 and 5 days, some of them, you know. But then the captains there were like a particular breed. They all knew each other, and they shared all their stories.
Jeffrey Hassell, the son of Captain Eric Hassell, reliving memories of the trade that occurred here in the Corinage area and that which his father contributed to. He continues now with memories of growing up on Robert Street with the entire family.
The house that we lived on, I don't know if you've been to New Orleans, they have these big like verandas. And remember, like, no, 109 Robert Street. And you know, who lived right across from us, this guy that writes the article in the paper, Harry Russell. Russ lived right across the street from us. Anyway, this house we lived in 109 Robert, it had, because we were 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, and they had doors, you know, and you'd be sitting down and you hear 4, 5, 6, 7, look outside, children coming, right? And they're pointing and they're counting the doors in the house from a Roebuck Street. You know? And we lived once, even before that, alongside the Coca-Cola factory. They had a factory in Roebuck Street as well, near to Combermere, practically opposite the Combermere School.
Did he say opposite the Combermere School on Robert Street? Yes, he did, and he is correct. For you, the younger viewers, Combermere School was situated on the site now occupied by the Transport Board on Robert Street.
And we lived right next to the Coca-Cola factory. I always says that's why I used to drink so many Cokes after when I was at school at Hassell College. We would go in the Coca-Cola at night, you know, and the guys would bring in bottles right after the delivery line, cold as anything, and you drink it right in. We lived actually about 3 or 4 places in Roebuck Street. I remember 109, and I remember the Coca-Cola factory, but there are 2 other places I cannot remember. One of them was very close to the Hassell College gate, but I cannot remember that house.
So we were always in Robert Street, and that was because he said, it makes sense. My office is the wharf. The boys are at Wesley Hall. You are at Queens. And you all can get to wherever with your legs. So the 4 boys walked to Wesley Hall. I rode to Queens, and he walked or rode to the wharf.
Now, what about memories of recreational activities in Robert Street that are now etched in the mind of Jeffrey Hassell? All of this occurring while his father, Captain Eric Hassell, is busy in the wharf area, building his business and ensuring that goods and other products are safely brought ashore to satisfy his customers.
But I know we used to go out the gate and go and take Bodalvis on the lawn. Joe Frank used to run us and quarrel with us at Hassell College and whatnot. I remember the milk being delivered to our door in the morning. When you go, you see the 4 bottles of milk there in the morning. Yep. And that particular house, I remember I received my first dog bite. we had a dog, and somehow we used to also have a couple of chickens in the yard like everyone had in those days. And I went to pick up the eggs, and Devil, his name, he just rushed at me. I was on my back, and I kicking him so, and he's actually coming through my legs, you know, and he bit me here eventually. I remember Daddy took me to it was Bailey's clinic then in Beckles Road, and Dr. Bailey, I remember touching Captain Hassell, just get the boy Cokes, get the boy Cokes. Tell Daddy to give me Cokes to drink. I mean,
Well, if you have a sailing vessel, rest assured that from time to time your children might have the good fortune of traveling with you. His son, Professor Sir Trevor Hassell, does have some special memories of sailing with his father, Captain Peace.
When I was a child, and I sailed with my father, and so the captains of those ships at the time, Captain Ferguson, Selby, Graham, they all had the same experience. They had the lives of many persons that they were responsible for. And so, in order to discharge their responsibilities, their serious responsibilities, it was necessary for them to be really very strong leaders, very strong leaders. And I recall very vividly on one occasion when shortly after we had left Barbados sailing to Guyana, there was a bit of an altercation between my father and one of the crew members, in which I thought, as a young boy really, that my father was particularly, how shall I put it, particularly strong, that I thought was necessary. His response at the time was, look, as the captain of this ship, I am the leader. I cannot allow any individual to jeopardize the safety of this ship and all the persons that travel on the ship. And you know, that to me was a very instructive lesson, because it showed me that as a leader, one had a responsibility very often to take what might appear to be difficult and maybe even unreasonable decisions. But if one was truly a leader, once one really understood what was trying to achieve, what was really the end point, what was the country, in the case of shipping, you were sailing towards, then it was important to maintain a focus and a discipline. And I have to say that that has stood me in good stead as a leader in the medical profession in many aspects in which I've been involved.
There you go, the importance of leadership and taking charge, and how this simple experience has influenced and placed him in good stead throughout his career in the medical profession. His daughter, Mrs. Shirley Chatterton, is convinced that she was extra special to her late father, Captain Eric Alfonso Hassell. She maintains that there was a special place reserved in Daddy's heart for her.
I always used to like to feel that I was his favorite. I think so. So I got to travel with him a lot. And so when I was about 10, I was traveling with him to Guyana. That was a good and happy time, because I was there alone with him. I didn't have to share him with the 7 others. So we had nice times to talk, and he would tell me about the different instruments and so on. And I would sleep in a little, what he called a dog house, but it was a little cabin, could almost say portable, and I could barely hold in it with my knees bent up. And he always said, you're not allowed downstairs. You must sleep where I can keep an eye on you. And being a girl, and they were all sailors, so I guess. So I could see him at the wheel. I could see him taking his sights with the sextant and with the chronometer and all those things.
So how long?
I would go, so this would be some holidays, usually, and I would stay on the boat and eat the boat, whatever they cooked. And I remember he would take me to a place called Brown Betty and have ice cream, but basically on the boat, yeah. I think it was like 4 days or 5 days. If it was sail, of course, no engine. It was all sail. So if there was not a good wind, it could take 5 or 6 days. But if I remember correctly, it was like 4 days, back and forward.
Memories don't leave like people do, they always stay with you. Of course, she was special in the eyes of her daddy. Well, Brother Jeffrey has special memories of traveling on the Zipper with his father, and of course, he concurs. Jeffrey, what was the name given to the area on the Zipper where you slept?
They used to call it a dog house. They would call it, so dog house for the captain, dog house for the mate, right? Because the steering wheel was like right there in the center, right? And they used to do, I think, 4-hour shifts, right? They used to do 4-hour shifts. So as the captain go in his dog house, go in and the mate go in his dog house. But nothing to do with dogs or anything. When he told me the first trip with him, you can sleep in my dog house. I was looking right, why not in there? He told me a particular trip they were making from Bonaire to BG, it was called in those days, British Guyana, right? And that particular voyage took them 24 days. So I said, but Daddy, what were you doing? He said, well, they were actually drifting back for several days. I remember he told me that, 24 days.
And the story goes that Captain Peace eventually made it safely to Guyana. Jeffrey Hassell joins us again with special memories about yet another trip to Guyana, this time with the entire family.
You can imagine now on a vessel, 440 feet, I suppose. My father says, never again, never again. We got women, of course, you know, and everybody puking all over the place, you know, and Daddy says, oh my God, every day. Imagine, imagine. We took a guy, he was a mental, he was a friend of ours, but he had some problems. And one night I remember sitting on the deck, we used to call him Mr. Mac. Mr. Mac come towards me, sitting down. And he'd go in his pocket, a box of matches. I said, Jeff, see this box of matches here? If I open this box at all, the whole world will go on. If I open, so I said, Mr. Matt, keep it shut. Keep it shut, all right? Keep it shut. Don't open it. At the time Daddy told me he was in Guyana, there's very wide range of tidal heights when you were in Georgetown. So you could go, let us say you leave at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening to go, and the ship is like this. And when you come back at 8 o'clock, it's down here, on mud. Daddy told me once that it was a high tide, and it was during the day, and he went out and was coming back in, and he missed a step in the water, fell in the water. He said they had some workmen on the wharf that jumped in the water, right? He had a radio, saved the radio, and left Captain Hassell. Daddy said he swore for about 10 hours. Oh, and then another thing, of course, whenever you're making those trips, you have a line trolling, you know, at the back of the thing. We catch dolphins and things. And the cook, he would come down right there on the spot, cut it open, cut off the head, do everything. And next morning, for sure, you get in fish and rice. for the, I said, well, that is, you can't be fresher than that. But no, but those days I remember vividly, and still say the best days of our life. It's like a whole different, it's a whole different, if things are going good once the weather's not bad, and I remember once we were going into Guyana, there's an area in Georgetown where they have a wall. The Guyanese call it a seawall. The seawall, right? And they go on to fly the kites and whatnot. And we were going in Easter on the Lucille Smith too. We were going in. We all thinking, Daddy, well, as soon as we get, we want to go on the seawall. All of a sudden, Lucille Smith stopped on a mud bank. That was the end of that. Didn't move from there for 2 days. Dude couldn't move from there for 2 days.
Today, Jeffrey Hassell looks back with laughter on those special memories. His sister, Mrs. Shirley Chatterton, takes us back to Barbados and regales us with yet more special memories of her time with her beloved father, Captain Eric Hassell.
In the summer, he would take us to Silver Sands. That was very special. We would all load up in a truck, 8 children, wife, the dogs, on the truck, and all the food for a month. And we would go to holiday house at Silver Sands. So, and during that time, the boat would be careened and the barnacles would be cleaned from the bottom or whatever, or put on dry dock. So he would use that summer to do things like that. So we would have him with us at least for that month at Silver Sands. Yeah, those were good memories.
Now, what we have seen and heard are the experiences and the stories of our people. Those stories that are to be chronicled and shared with the younger generation as together we seek to inspire Barbados. This has been From Saba to Barbados, the maritime legacy of Captain Eric Hassell. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for your time. Here now is a special invitation for you to join me again next week as we continue with this series. It's goodbye for now.